Yeah, sorry about the login problems. Alright, just a minute, I'll try to get it changed.
Your change.
I know, right? No, I only changed my avatar to change it into something even worse for testing purposes. This is actually for our avatars that have tons of textures and tons of triangles and all kind of fun stuff. This is the thing that was causing the bit you guys about that in a previous meeting. Well, anyway,
So you got is it going to tackle avatars first?
Excuse me?
Yes.
Well, we're trying to yeah, we're trying to update the rendering cost calculation first, which is kind of a necessary anything else anyway, since that's one of the inputs into the land impact formulas and stuff. Anyway, let's see. Do a different app I'm working. So what's going on? We have EAP is continuing. I think Euclid is out, right? Follow me. Tell me, do you want to give a brief rundown on where we are with the EAP stuff?
Yeah, sure. I think we have about a dozen bugs or so, last count, so we're working on those. Slowly whittle those down.
Yep, sounds good. So we're yeah, we're trying to get this wrapped up soon, like hopefully end of the month soon. So we'll let you know how that goes. Let's see, other things. Not a lot of other things. That's the latest iteration of the maintenance viewer. So you know, just bug fixes and such. Crash rate seems to be very low, so that should be nice. And after that, we'll be doing the usual round of updating all the other viewers with the latest contents. Let's see. I mentioned Arctan, which has been blocked by this bake service issue, which is why I'm currently a cloud. But I'm going to have to. Oop, my appearance may be updating. Bye. I think I've got a fix for that, so it's going to require us going through the usual round of. Unfortunately, it's not a very fast process, but hopefully eventually we'll be able to get that out as well. Let's see, what else? We got some out on trying to redo some of the caching in the viewer. We've got there's a bunch of code that hasn't been touched in a long time. Cache and the various sort of in-memory stuff that sits on top of that, and there's a lot of performance and apparently some stability issues. That stuff. So we're going to be trying to rework that pretty. So when that actually gets to the stage where it's a releasable viewer, we'll give you more details on that one. Yeah, the main viewer is still on the alternate viewers page. Funny story about that. We've got some kind of problem with our process for generating the alternate viewers page, so sure on it. Let's see. So I think that's about it on my end. Anything that folks want to chat about? Anybody building anything cool or thinking about any interesting new stuff these days? So the problem is that since we have the muscadine project on hold, the simulators that were, I think there's just one. I mean, were muscadine version of the simulator have gotten pulled off onto other things. Hopefully we can get that revived without it turning into a major side project, but we've got a few other things in the pipeline right now. Well, it's not really at the level of regions, Lucy. Basically it's at the level of SimHost. The SimHost is running one per time. So like if there's one SimHost that's running a dozen regions, then if it gets switched over to use a different version of the simulator code, then all those you can't leave one. But it may be that we can find a slower, a slower host that isn't running as many regions that we can afford to dedicate to something online. Will there be further improvements in EAP? We have a lot of EAP things that have been put on the list for possible post EAP improvements. One of those. It's not that we don't care about these and want to fix them. It's never going to ship this thing. Last time I heard, I think we had 600 issues in the EAP viewer already. That's like work that's actually already done. Currently flagged for EAP 2, it would probably be a few hundred more, so realistically. We get tackle graphics improvements, including EAP related stuff. Show release. Yeah, let's see. EAP is down to a handful of issues. Trying to get wrapped up by the end of the month, but we will. We don't usually mention dates here, so if I mention a date, we're pretty serious. Yeah, well, Penny, that's obviously always a can juggling the projects, but at any given time we have to choose, among a whole lot of different possible priorities, and that you or I are excited about isn't necessarily at the top of the list at any given time. Just have to, kind of keep plugging at it when we get a chance. Yeah, I'm not sure what the story is on a non-uniform day-night cycle. I thought there was a uniform day-night.
I'm curious as to whether you see those changes. Um, is it a difference of between a few hours, like a couple hours difference as you cross a region boundary?
Not sure what an hour is in
Oh,
terms of the day-night cycle.
does it seem like it goes from? Does it seem like it goes from noon to 9 p.m. or is it more like it's going from 6 to 8?
It's hard to say, but I'm running a non-EEP viewer. I have Firestorm 6.3.2.
Okay. There are some adjustments made to the there's some adjustments that are made to the uh, all simulators are EEP at this point. When we translate that down into the legacy Windlight to send to the viewer, there are some other things that get translated down to try and keep them in sync. I'm just concerned that they may have gotten out of sync. So.
Expecting to spend 6 months waiting for EEP to appear in Firestorm. So
They type as fast as they can. Anyway, yes, please send me landmarks so I can take a look.
Geez.
I have to go sailing again then. Okay.
In response to Silas's question about animations, I think he's referring to the which Lucy gave the details on there. That is also on hold currently. The idea there was to bring in Neuron's viewer for doing joint by joint poses, entering different values for each of positions or rotations for the joints, and the biggest limitation of it was that it was only visible appearance as you're doing the pose, but there wasn't any way to share it with anyone else. Is a purely viewer feature. So the biggest piece we thought was missing there was the ability to other people, and the simplest way to do that would be to just generate a single frame animation that puts your joints into whatever position the pose is, and then you in the same pose. It's currently on hold. If we get time to look at it, that would be the done before putting out at least an initial project viewer would be to have that support for simple animations. Editor where you generate a bunch of different keyframes and join them together and stuff is probably out of scope, since the whole feature is really more oriented toward individual poses. Quite a lot of additional work and more fluid. I don't think his stuff has any connection to the puppeteering page. The puppeteering page is an old prototype from several years ago, which we can't really run today. It's too much has changed in the viewer and the simulator both. But it does remain an interesting source of possible future work. Interested in being able to do poses, but I agree that's not as flexible as a full editor. Yeah. Joe, if you're seeing weirdness with Animesh, then filing a JIRA would be the best way to let us know. I don't know if that's a graphics issue. Is it on a particular viewer? Is that with EAP or with the regular default viewer?
I was on Firestorm, but
okay.
I made some, or a friend of mine made some doors, Animesh doors with windows. And when you look through the windows, you can't see things that are have alpha textures.
That's interesting. It could just be the issues with transparency in general, that things don't necessarily layer very well.
Yeah, it was fine if it wasn't Animesh though.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that actually would be helpful to have a JIRA for, especially if you can link it to some of the content, or send us a copy of the content so we could test against that.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't find anything on the JIRA, and I sort of remembered some people saying something about alpha early on in the Animesh, but I couldn't remember if that was it or not. This is the first time I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I know Animesh should look basically the same as avatars do. So I mean, if you had the same window attached to your avatar, it should look the same. But it's possible that it's getting handled a bit differently than it would if it was flagged as a static object in the scene.
It did seem like things with alpha masking worked fine.
Lucy said there's a graphic-specific issue with muscadine. That's interesting. There isn't. There shouldn't be very much code in there except for just the support for slider param. So it's interesting if there's a kind of a specific graphics issue that's gotten in there. Oh, body shape param differences. Okay. Is that one that you've already filed the JIRA on? I know you've put some in about issues with the param system before. Polysale for Big Sun Mesh follow-up work. Yeah, you know, like any other project, you know, we tend to accumulate issues that we'd like to work on, but you know, have to postpone, you know, for the initial release. So we do have some things flagged that way as possible follow-ons for Big Sun Mesh. Are there particular you know, bugs or features you're interested in there? I think the thing we hear about most is probably LSL controls for outfits to get better HUD support, but I don't know if that's what you're thinking of.
Well, I will mention that not having those extra materials for your skin kind of creates a situation where you don't want to use bakes on mesh for your skin, because you know, for other things it might not be so important, but for skin, the extra materials helps. Yeah.
I thought you could use the other materials, but you just couldn't bake the other materials. Is that not right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
We are currently working on a pregnant female, and we have to deal with the skin and all that stuff, and layering now too.
Okay. Yeah. Polysale. I did see your email. A lot of good ideas there, but we haven't really gotten a chance to do anything more with Bakes on Mesh since I think the last time that we were discussing that.
Well, it does get really tricky with the layering too, because unless I guess it wouldn't, because I mean, you're knowing what, like if a part's alpha, then you wouldn't use that normal. But do you really even get that info in a normal texture? Like, I don't know how you would bake those.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, either animations or obviously the alpha cycling can have a lot of performance impact, but either one, it's basically going to be on the viewer side, not the simulator.
But
Red is a leggy color.
as with anything, you can abuse it though to the point where it impacts everyone.
No, I don't see how red can be a laggy color if you know the fastest sports cars are red. That just doesn't make sense.
That'd be a good April Fool's to do. Change everyone's textures temporarily to a certain color. We heard complaints that color was slow, so we improved performance by changing everyone's color to be red for a day or something.
Yeah, just collect feedback. Let us know if that's faster.
So I did see Soft Linden talking about how he got all these great shader people. So do we have any plans for work for them?
Shader people? Well, our graphics people are full time on EAP for now, but once that's out the door, we hope they get some time to think about you know, graphics improvements of various sorts. Some are more long term and probably some shorter term stuff. But yeah, for now they're full time on EAP. We don't really have any cycles for their goodies right now.
Didn't someone, I could have swore I heard somebody talking about a VR viewer for Second Life again?
I haven't heard any discussions about that recently.
I was just looking at my own sim, and I'm like averaging about 70 frames, so I'm thinking, maybe I could go in VR.
I think VR would be tough. It's not. I mean, part of the problem is it doesn't refresh fast enough, but the other problem is that the refresh rate is so variable. So I think it would be a very jittery experience for people.
Well, even if a place was made specifically for VR.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, what I've been seeing with Arctan testing is that there's a whole lot of variation in frame rate. You know, if you just look at how long each frame takes, and I think part of the problem is that there's things that probably should be running in separate threads that aren't. so some operations wind up just kind of plopping themselves down in the middle of a frame and taking a bunch of time. I think those are things related to avatar loading, so it's not so much how complicated the scene is, but more how complicated the avatars around you and your own avatar are. But you probably could improve things with by picking the right.
Well, I was thinking more like if someone were to like create a game, could it be played in VR? You know, so there wouldn't tech around you or loading in necessarily.
Yeah, I think a lot of the frame rate jitter does have to do with loading. So once you're in a steady state, and everything is visible in the scene, you could probably get a little smoother performance.
One thing I was crazy impressed by over in Sansar was that loading, that progressive loading they had going on. I mean, it loaded fast, super fast. You couldn't even notice, really, most of the time.
Yeah.
Where it's a stark difference from Second Life,
Yeah, and I know they put in a lot of work on trying to keep the frame rate high and relatively constant too, which makes it a lot better behaved in a VR setting.
But yeah, if we could get all of that loading faster, then there would be less variation, in the frame rate.
Yeah, I think we can probably make loading faster, but the other thing is that we can probably make loading less bursty, right? So even if stuff takes a while to load, at least it doesn't take a different amount of time from one frame to the next. There's a lot of geometry rebuilding and stuff that's going on in the main thread, which
right.
can take long enough to really blow up your frames.
I understand that, polysale. Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, you see that kind of progressive. I mean, I was kind of against the progressive loading in Sansar because I didn't feel like we really even needed it. But once they implemented it, it was so nice that, it really impressed me. And I just wondered if, if we could have that kind of loading here in Second Life, it would seriously improve things.
For VR, there's some foundations we need to set, and so part of the prerequisites for VR is the caching, and so that's why work on the VFS will, I think, pay dividends in the future to enable some of these extra things that we would like. So it's definitely, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The variable frame rate is just one part of the equation. It's definitely other factors too. So simple thing is just enable VR. Ideally, we want to hit minimum 90 FPS, and so caching, and so yeah, it's been talked about.
Well, that's I'm always thinking about the future. So
we actually have another project going on that I need to get back onto for HTTP2 to replace the HTTP1 pipelining, and that should get us some benefit as well. Especially if we start applying it to all assets.
Yeah, I mean, really, when I look at Second Life, graphics. I mean, you can look at certain parts of Second Life and say, yeah, it looks beautiful, but graphics could be improved, and I'm a VR. I was not a VR person before Sansar, but I'm definitely a VR person now.
Yeah, VR is pretty cool, no doubt about that.
A lot of some speed, a lot of stability. There are um, no one ever in any router or ISP or anything has ever implemented pipelining well. It has a tendency to get hit by firewalls and just not good. It would also give us better priority control on what gets loaded through the multiplexing, and um, uh, you could give meshes priority over textures or some. There are just a lot of benefits that we could get out of it. Absolutely.
Do you think you could ever run like Second Life on a web viewer?
That's outside my wheelhouse. And no, not HTTP3. HTTP3 is not ready yet.
Theoretically, it should be possible. I know people basically transpiled basically C++ code into JavaScript, and the WebViewer has WebGL acceleration, so it's possible. The question is how much time it would take in order to do that, and then the benefit for that I think would be questionable. But technically, it should be doable.
That's a really interesting exercise, Silas, being able to do the side-by-side comparison like that.
I am so stealing that, Polycell.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think the engineering version of that is, you can make a airplane shaped like a brick if you give it enough thrust.
Now, what about an FBX format for importing?
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to have. I think that was one of the first, or maybe the main thing that Sansar supported, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I look at across, because if Xanthar's going to, or Second Life is going to get more creators, then like having a weird format that few people are using, is kind of deterrent.
Yep, yep.
I also know there's some new formats everyone else to accept. Interesting fact, 3DX Max just this past year allowed their users to export an FBX with multiple animations.
So you've got FBXs with animations embedded, and they wind up as sort of part of the object that gets uploaded?
Yeah, in Max you could. I did not believe this, but I had a Cerberus over in Sansar kept asking me, "How are you getting all these different animations?" And he goes, "I have to stack them up." And I'm like, "You don't need to stack them up. It's FBX. You can have multiple animations." Actually, I had to ask Sansar to implement that, and they did. But I was the only person who could use it, or any Blender user. Yeah, Blender was the only 3D software that was exporting multiple animations properly. I mean, you could do it with funky add-ons and whatnot in Max, but when my Cerberus told me, I was like, no way. And then I searched the net, and yeah, he was totally right. You couldn't do it. But in Blender, it's no problem. Yeah, Cerberus plays with a lot of different things. He's really good. Trying to get him to come here, but he's not a Second Life fan.
Yeah, getting that hellish Collada mesh upload working was, I don't know, it's at least a 10-person project over the course of a couple of years by the end, and it's still an incomprehensible mess in the UI. So, yeah, when people tell me we need to support a different format, I'm sympathetic, but it makes me nervous to contemplate. D, no, I didn't. Sorry about that. I saw your note, and that is definitely a weird thing that we need to look into. But unfortunately, I've just been swamped this week.
I just thought I'd ask you again about that because one prim, actually, when it uploaded, it was up half a prim, and it went from half a prim to 16,000 just from prim to, or from convex hull prim. I sent you the one prim one, so be sure you're someplace safe before you switch that.
Did you look at the breakdown of that? Is it the physics that's blowing it up?
I'm not sure. I looked at the physics shape of it, and it looked like it had just chosen a single phase triangle. So I'm not sure. I uploaded it again the second time, and I didn't have a problem with it. Um,
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, and it's the exact mirror. Like it was two sides of the same thing. So the geometry was the same on the right-hand side that didn't have that problem as it was on the left-hand side. I uploaded them at the same time. I probably chose this everything.
Hmm.
I uploaded them, bang bang, but that
Yeah.
one was the
I mean, if you right-click on the object and pick Edit, and then pick More Info, it'll show you the breakdown of the different components of the weight. So at least you can figure out why it's such a big number. It'll tell you
it
it
had.
gives you like download, physics, server, display, right?
I looked at both when I uploaded the left and right-hand sides. I chose the same. It's not a really high poly thing, but it did have bars, so I was trying to do something special that I wasn't seeing developer of the shapes.
Uh-huh.
But whatever it was, it just seems to be that one item. I haven't found it on anything else, but I'm kind of afraid to tick that box now, unless I'm in a sandbox, because that put the fear of prims into me. I'll tell you, it started returning half my store, because suddenly my land 1,000 prim.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. Polysale it looks like it's saying it's probably a physics issue, which would have been my guess too, but as I say, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
But when I was speaking about buggy uploader, it would be really nice if there was something somewhere that checked that on upload if it's a problem. And also it would be nice if there was something in the sim level that when you tick a box like that and something explodes in size, it doesn't just start returning happier prims, it just decides it's not going to do that. That would be really handy if there was a
Yeah,
way
it would
to
sort
put
of make
that
sense
in
to
there.
prioritize the stuff that's already there.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things where, I never want my stuff returned to me. Ever. Especially not, normally I'm on a different parcel, but this time I just happened to do that in my shop, and then suddenly my shop had no floors and half the walls were gone. Yeah, it went from 1 prim to 16,000, and that's okay. Anyway, if you get a
We
chance,
don't have
look at
an
it.
undo yet.
Well, the thing of it was, because it maxed out my parcel, like it went from 1 prim to 16,000 on a 10,000 prim parcel, and so it just started returning everything rather than just not letting the prim turn from convex hull to prim. It just started throwing everything, the oldest stuff first, or I don't know how it picked what it was throwing at me, but it was not pretty.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, I have to admit, I just about fell out of my chair. I am reading up now. I actually don't have the object in my inventory. I stuck it in a box and then deleted it because I was terrified I might accidentally pull it out again. I'd be happy to give it to you if you just promise not to weaponize it. Because really, I mean, that could be a weapon. You could take something to a fairly full sim, just change the convex hull. There's nothing in the system to catch it to say, hey, you can't do that, and it'll just start returning shit. That's just. Mm.
So, Vir, when can we see like results from the avatar portion of Arcatan?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I've run into a blocker there with the appearance service. Bake service basically refusing to bake some of my test outfit, so I'm trying to get that deployed and approved, at least get it out on a dev grid, if not on the main grid. So I have some place that I can do my tests. So I don't know. I'll tell you when I can get unstuck, but for right now, I'm kind of blocked on that.
So, are you going to try and account for the textures?
Yeah, we're trying to. I think the biggest components that we need to be accounting for, more rigorously are the triangle count and the quantity and size of the textures. But we also need to factor in some of the different rendering options as well. Depending on how fancy the prim characteristics are, stuff can get significantly more expensive too. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Polysale? Should there be more just checking? It seems like maybe there are times people want to do this, but probably most of the time they don't. Yeah, I mean, you can only do so much validation at upload time since you don't know what the final size of the object is going to be. Alright, well, we're about at time for this week, so I'm going to have to run. Let's see, I think we should be on our usual schedule for the next week or two, and beyond that I'll need to update the wiki and see. But generally, the way I think it's going to be working going forward is that our no meeting week is going to move to the second Thursday of the month instead of the first. But there will probably still be exceptions to that occasionally. All right, well, have a good one, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Vir. Thanks, everyone.